Resume the recording. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. And this is sort of a preview of some of the work I've done. At first, some of the work I've done on TR4W contest logger for WSJT integration, WSJT-X integration. And this actually stemmed from when we were doing the field day at home, where we were sort of all communicating together and chatting during field day, during the operating event. Leading up to it, you hear all these tales of frustration of people trying to figure out how to configure N1MM and WSJT-X and whatnot. And I decided I used TR4W for field day, and I just used JT Alert and into its own little file for the contacts for FT8 and FT4. And then I just imported them over at the end. And that worked just fine. To a point, I actually discovered that the import didn't work quite well. So that was the first thing I started doing, I redid the ADIF engine to re-import that imports files. And so I processed those ADIF because it was really just picking the basic fields. It wasn't picking all the fields it could. So I redid that, and as I did that, then I said, well, okay, I kind of knew what's involved in the WSJT-X interface based on how JT Alert works, because it uses a UDP protocol, which is just a non-connection based networking protocol to send messages. And so I sort of knew how that worked, but I knew that you could certainly do things, because obviously JT Alert can change the colors, and so can N1MM in WSJT-X. So so I got into investigating a little bit and say, okay, what would it actually take to do it? And I had been thinking about doing it, and there was some issues that I was a little concerned about, how I would do rig control and how I would do the back and forth UDP and messages. But the bottom line is, as I investigated it, it actually wasn't that bad to do. So it took probably took me a week or so to get it to get at least the basic. You prove the concept would work, and then I since then had been working on. Here's Ron. So we had met one more person. Since then, I'd been working on doing some improvement, and the devil's in the details when you get into things like the different rigs and split mode, because you may or may not know that WSJT-X, when you set up the radio, has a split mode where it will shift the frequency a little bit to separate things out. And I don't know if people who run that typically run that, or they just leave it as none. There's three options. One's called fake it, where the program will just shift the audio tones itself. One is rig control, where it actually uses both VFOs and put them in split mode. And addressing the VFOs, actually, and the modes, that there were some limitations there. By the way, TR4W comes from, for those that don't know, its root is a program that Larry Tyree N6TR wrote ages ago, which was a DOS program, which was called TR-Log. And then TR-Log was ported over to Windows. And then Larry and the gentleman who worked on the Windows port, they worked on getting it open source. That's why it's sitting in the repository as open source. But anyway, the TR really only had the concept of digital, and when it meant digital, it meant ready. So it had modes of CW, phone, and digital. That was it. So there's actually now extended mode support in the program. So internally, when you do digital, it really also retains, well, is this digital, or is this RIDI? Is it PSK? Is it FT8? Is it, whatever it is? It has these really long list of modes that it keeps track of internally. The end user doesn't see that, because all the while I'm doing this, we had to make sure that the users who are using it and don't use WSJT-X, they don't see any changes at all. That really was the objective, to make it somewhat transparent. So this is an attempt to make it all work, and including the split mode, including, and I'll talk about the configuration of it, because it's quite a bit simpler than the configuration steps people have to go through at N1MM. And I actually hope this serves two things. I hope it serves people that want to use this, but even if, even on the N1MM side, I really hope that it's a it might give them some ideas on, you don't have to make it as god awful complex as you have made it to integrate N1MM with WSJT-X. It's actually possible to do it, so it's not so hard to integrate. And it's just you're reading all the documentation, the pages and pages. It's like that's I come from the Mac School of Programming, where the program should be self-evident, and you should write it right so the user, it's intuitive enough that the user can understand it. So anyway, so let me go ahead and run this, and let me share my screen. And I'm going to go through, I'm going to show it, and then I will do, because I know some people haven't used TR, I'll just go through a few basic steps on setting it up. So let me go ahead and share this. Let me do this screen. We'll do it that way. And I want to share number 2, I think. Okay, everybody should be able to see my screen. You see the screen where I'm moving the window? Everybody should be able to see that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, good. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Tom, could you let me in?
Oh, what do you mean?
I have my iPhone for audio, but I want to see the video on my computer.
Oh, I thought I did let you in. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Oh, you did.
Sorry. I see you. I see you now. I got it. Got it.
I've just got to get a microphone on my computer, and then I could just do one session and make things easier.
You're in.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me go ahead and run this, and I'll show you how to run this. And normally, this I'm just using a general QSO mode that we have. And again, I'm just going to go through the demo first, and we'll show how this works. I do have some debug code in here that displays things, and so I put this little warning here so people know, hey, you're running a debug version. So these are contacts I've all made with WSJT-X, and so that's useful for a couple reasons. Let me go ahead and run. So now, okay, so here's the trick. So TR is just sitting here doing nothing, just sort of waiting, talking. Oh, actually, hold on. I do have to make one change here. I switched back to my K3. Let me change this back to radio. Let me change this back to my K3. I did it this way, and that's serial 5, and that's 9600 baud. Change K3. Really, it was that. It was COM port 5, right? Sorry, I forgot to do that this morning. Yeah, COM 5. Maybe I got the baud rate wrong. Hold on one second. I probably had this wrong. Just checking my baud rate here. 1 second. Some of the things you do. Thought I had this. I was playing around with the ICOM coding some stuff for the ICOM last night. So.
Which ICOM is that, Tom?
Actually, I'm using the 7300. I have a 7300 I picked up when they first came out. So I'm actually using that because the 7300 does what's sort of called the newer. It has a newer command set which allows you to directly change the second VFO. Older ICOMs used to have to do the switch where they bring the second VFO into the primary, change it, and then flip it back. Newer ones, you don't have to do that. So I actually coded that last night, so it has to do with split mode. But anyway, that's a 7300, and same code works in like the 7610 and any of the newer ones. Hold on 1 second here. Let me see what happened with my. Do I have the baud rate set up right? It's always the demo.
On a side note, Tom, while we're
Sure.
talking, I have access to a, which I'm working on right now, is a 991.
Oh, cool.
So I don't know if you'd be interested in playing with that.
Actually, the newer Yaesus are actually one that I have not tried this with. So that would be, that would actually be very useful to be able to do that, because I have not tried the. I want to check and see how the modes work.
Okay.
With that, so yeah, it would be useful to do if that's possible. I was thinking
Yeah,
about how to. All I have is an 817, and that's not really the same. All right,
Right.
hold on. Let me start this again. That would be cool. Thank you. I got to break out my 9100 too, because the ICOM 9100 does the old ICOM command set where you can't directly access the VFO, the second VFO. Oh, of course, this isn't going to work. What did I do here? Hold on.
Those gremlins, man, they just
Yeah,
keep
I tell you, I
on,
don't know what it is.
jumping in here.
What did I? Hold on. You know what? I got a better idea. Hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry. Hold on. Let me. The trick is when in doubt, run the K3 program, and the K3 program will tell you. Ah, there it is. It was 38.4. COM5 at 38.4. Okay, that was my problem. Okay, I had the wrong speed. All right, sorry. Let's see. Cat, 81. That was my problem. There you go. Okay, thank you. So you see down here we have 14.07404, which is what my radio shows right now. So when I move this around, that changes, and that's simple rig control. So the steps here are, so the program is sitting here. The program doesn't know anything about, there's no indication on the screen that WSJT-X exists. People who are used to it are just using it, no problems. And now I'm going to run WSJT-X. Now notice that on TR, it popped up with a little box that says WSJT-X is active.
How did you run that? Did you just go into WJT-X by itself, the icon, and click on it?
Yeah, I just ran it. I just ran WSJT-X because my theory is that's what people are used to doing when they're used to using the program. So why give them another way to start it?
Okay, so you'd have your TR program running as a logging program. Now you want to get into WJT-X. You just click on the icon. It pops up as a separate program, and you're good to go.
That's correct. That's yeah. I saw no reason to tie the two and make it launch from one from the other. I saw no reason to add that complication. So,
but it does recognize that it's there, though.
It does, yes, because as soon as WSJT-X comes out, it starts sending out broadcasts saying I'm here. It's basically starts sending out status packets. And I see those, and it says, "Hey, WSJT-X is here," and it gives an indication that yes, it's talking to WSJT-X.
Right.
Okay. If I shut this down, that goes away because WSJT-X is said it's closed. It sends a message out saying I'm closing, and we take that away. So that's the only indication that's there. So yeah, so down in my start menu, I actually have this pinned to my taskbar rather. I just click on WSJT-X and it goes ahead and runs, and now you see it's back. All right. So now, okay, let me go ahead and work somebody because this is where it gets kind of fun. I was on my dummy load last night because there was so many storms. I was actually coding. I had to go get my dummy load from downstairs because I couldn't plug I usually plug it into an antenna so I can key the transmitter because what I was doing I needed to key the transmitter, but that didn't work. So anyway, so here I'm going to go ahead and call. Now my radio is transmitting. That's actually what that little red on is at the bottom of TR. And I have no ALC output. Hold on, maybe I looked at it the wrong time. Let's see, let's get to the right set here. I have power up, right? Yep.
Oh, I see you.
There he is, okay, good. So now I'm transmitting again back to, I'm gonna admit somebody called test here. I don't know what's gonna happen, so forewarning.
Looks like you're talking to a K4YNZ.
That's correct, yeah. And let's see what happens. There he is. There's a 73. All right. So now it pops up the log. And and you notice I have -13 and +07 for the report. And I'm going to click OK. And look what happens over in the log. K4YNZ is there. If I click on edit this QSO, you see the RST sent is -13 and 7. You see the mode is FT8. And the other cool thing is now if you look at the CQ for K4YNZ, you'll see it's in a deeper red. That's kind of a okay. So let me state one thing. The colors by default in TR are red as duplicates, yellow are multipliers. All right. So those are completely user changeable. If you want to set them to something else, you're free to do that. But those are the default colors. So what I've done here is every time it sees a CQ from imagine this is a contest scenario. Every time it sees a CQ, it's going to color that station red because it's already worked them. So that's a dupe. So that's the coloring we're doing. So if this was a contest where I had already worked K4YNZ and I didn't need to work them anymore, I would go ahead and color it red which is the dupe color. And as an example, if over here I type in K4YNZ, you'll see it pops up a QSO before in the program. And that's our red is our color. I know N1MM does that, and multipliers I think are red. But again, whatever. If somebody really wanted it, hey, I want it to be different colors. If I change that color, it matches whatever color you set it up in TR. It'll put it in. It'll do the coloring over in WSJT-X. So it follows. Because I know some people may want different colors, and we have support for that to change in the coloring. You can change that to whatever you want, and so I don't that's not just hard coded. It's all derived from the same colors that you use the other one with. So okay, so again, I worked them. Now in this case, in the general QSO case, I just put the grid because that's really all I have, right? In WSJT-X, standard WSJT-X, that's all I have is the grid and the signal report. One thing I wanted to show, and Howie, this is probably more for you to see, is you notice here in the modes, this is one thing somebody would see something different. The mode's going to be selected, but you'll see all the different modes that it internally supports now. And that again, I still keep the same, the TR, the main mode is digital, and it still keeps that, but it has this thing called an extended mode that it stores. And that's so it knows if it's FT8 or FT4 or whatever it might be.
So that's what you added to.
Yeah, I needed to add that actually mostly for the ADIF exporting. So I knew what the actual mode was because I couldn't just say digital. I needed to tell it, what the real mode was.
Right. Can you demonstrate the ADIF export?
Sure, absolutely, no problem. So over here so if I want to export these, I go to export ADIF, and these are all my ADIF contacts. So if I go down to this station I just made right here, that's this one. I'll highlight in a second, but just to show it here, you'll see that it's K4YNZ, band is 20, time on, time off. RST sent is minus, hold on here, let me scroll this a little. What happened here? Minus, where's my thing here?
Minus 13.
Yeah, and I don't see it on my screen for some. Oh, there, hold on, there it is right there.
Minus 13, so I'm scrolled over to the other side.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the grid scroll. Okay, yep, you got it. And then RST is 7, and then the contest ID again is just general QSO. But the mode here is FT8 and frequency, and this is what we sent. If it was like Roundup or Field Day, that STX string, that's the transmitted string, that would be like 1D West Central Florida, and it would have the SRX string would be like 1A North Carolina or whatever I worked somebody else. So that would be whatever it was. So yeah, so that's been changed quite a bit to add that. And I suspect as time goes on, because we didn't have a lot of those in other contests, I'll have to add more to refine each contest, but that'll be more as people, just a matter of getting around to doing each one of them. for the different. I mean, the STX string isn't terribly important. I mean, sometimes it's useful. Like when I export my things to DXKeeper stores that, so I know when I get a QSL card, if it says, "Oh, you were my contact number, 300," I can look in my log. It'll say number 300 there.
Now, being in this file, Tom, can we separate various calls or contacts and export them independently? Or do you suggest we just do the entire file?
Well, I can just go ahead and open with Notepad. And I can, as long as you have an ADIF, as long as you have the header.
Okay.
If I wanted to, I could say, okay, go ahead and take out
Right, a stack of whatever.
those, and then you can
Create a new file.
Yeah, as long as you have the EOH up here, that's the important thing. You start with the EOH. Just make sure you leave something up here. And I updated this a little bit too under timestamp creation, but the EOH is important in the call. So because they're all single records, so you can slice and dice that however you want. If
you're using Logbook of the World, it's going to ask you for the date range anyway if you want to use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're doing, I mean, it all depends on how if you're importing stuff directly into TQSL or something like that, you could do it that way. Yeah, and then I don't want to save that because I've changed it. And yeah, so and then the other one, in this case, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but
Gorilla Flow. Okay, good.
In the cab file, if I wanted, and Howie, by the way, I did. Although I'm not sure why it didn't populate the operators. I got to look at that. It's supposed to populate. I actually added something to go look at the log and populate the operators, but that was just something I added for fun because I always wanted that. But let's see. So here, okay, this is going to be all over the place because this is general QSO, and I'll say this right up front. General QSO doesn't really have a format for Cabrillo. It's not made to be. Oh, Alan's waiting to get back in. General QSO doesn't have a format for Cabrillo, so obviously I've never done that before, so I know what the problem there is. I know what's doing that, so I got a few things to fix there, but never occurred to me to do a Cabrillo file for a general QSO format, so you wouldn't really do that, but I can fix that. So it's just one thing I've run into, but that has to do with the way the integers or the minus sign is taken care of.
But for a contest, this would not be a problem, right?
That, you're right, because I'd have a real exchange in there. That wouldn't be a problem at all, no.
Yeah, worst case scenario, though, you could always take the ADIF file, stick it in another file that creates a Cabrillo format and create it that way too. Oh,
no, yeah, but again, if it's a real contest, we create the file with no problem. So that's it's just I've never occurred to me to do it for general QSO. So I'm going to write that down so I don't forget to change that. So again, yeah, it's more the general handler.
But of course, there could be people that used TR4W as their general QSO file.
Yes. They would pretty much do ADIF though. I can't imagine they'd ever have a reason to do a cab file, but we'll still fix that just in case.
Right.
So I like to find those when I can. So anyway, so let me work one more person here. And now one thing I want to do here is so remember before, I should say a couple things here. So the configuration in WSJT-X, I don't have WSJT-X configured any differently because I'm not in contest mode, right? So if you've used this before, you know that when I go to advanced, I have a contest mode. Like if it was in field day, we would set that for field day or roundup or whatever. Well, we're just doing standard regular QSOs, so we don't set that mode. Let's look at radio.
Oh, okay, there we go.
The one thing that is confusing as heck in the documentation, and it's no fault of their own, in the N1M and N1MM documentation, and it confuses people to no end, is the rig control is called DXLab Suite Commander. Now, if you don't get what I'm going to say here, ask the question because I'm still trying to find out what is the right way to explain this so everybody gets what we really mean by that. DXLab Suite Commander implemented a protocol which uses TCP/IP over the network to do rig control. And that rig control is a series of messages Actually, it's not there. So it's a series of messages it does that basically says, what's the frequency of the VFO? Set the VFO to this. Go ahead and turn on the transmitter. Go ahead and tell me what the split mode is. Set the split frequency, set VFO A to this and VFO B to this. It's a whole protocol that uses. So Dave, AA6YQ, already had this protocol set up in Commander, which is a rig control program that's part of the DX Lab suite. Well, rather than invent another, so the problem we're trying to solve is that if I typically have my logging program doing rig control, because I need to know what frequency I'm on to know, okay, I'm on 20, is this a multiplier, and things like that, right? So I need to, so rather than you have this problem where the rig, two things can't talk to the rig at one time, two separate, because it's a serial port. So two separate things can't talk to it unless you're doing something else like Win for K3 suite or something like that, or Win for ICOM suite, or Win for Yasu suite. He's got several now, but anyway. So what they did was, since Dave already had this protocol, the AA6YQ, called DX Lab Suite Commander, and WSJT-X implement a whole bunch of different rigs. So you can talk to all these different radios. And one of the things they had also added was DX Lab Suite Commander. So if you already if you're running Commander, so typically your log environment, you run DX Keeper, you run Commander, it's talking to your radio, it's getting the mode and the frequency. You know, this is for general day-to-day QSOs, not contest logging. So since they already had that protocol in WSJT-X, rather than write a new protocol called the N1MM radio control protocol, they just used the one they already have the one that is in Commander. So what N1MM did, and I subsequently did as well, because it made the most sense, is they implemented a protocol which basically looks like Commander. You don't actually run Commander. You don't actually need to download DX Keeper, although I highly recommend you do if you don't, if you're a general logger, but you don't have to. You don't need Commander on your computer. Don't need anything related to Commander. All that really should be relabeled in WSJT-X to say, not the DX Lab Suite Commander, but the interprogram radio control protocol. That's really what it should be called. It's just that DX Lab Commander implemented it first, and that's what they implemented, so that's what it's named. All right? That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay, so the idea is that we're not really talking to Commander, and I say this because I've talked to people who are on this phone call, which I won't name, that have asked that, hey, I needed to have Commander on my system. It's like, no, you don't. But that's really a confusing point, and I feel sorry for the N1MM support people because half of the questions are on their thing are, you don't really need. Hey, I installed Commander and it doesn't work. So I'm like, no, you don't need to install Commander. So all it really says is that rather than do the rig control itself, because I could easily go in here and pick my K3 or 7300, right? I could go say 7300. Rather than do that, it just says, hey, I'm going to rely upon something else to do the rig control. And it's just, in this case, it's just using the Commander protocol. And all the N1MM team did, and all I've done, is implement a protocol which makes it we look just like Commander. So WSJT-X thinks it's talking to Commander, but it's talking to us instead. That's the only difference. And let me tell you, it's chatty. I'm looking at another screen. I'll pull this over here right now. You see all that polling going on. This is where I put debug messages when I'm debugging. You see all those things that say send mode and it's doing it once a second. That is WSJT-X asking TR, tell me my rig, tell me the split status, tell me the frequency you're on, and it asks once a second. It's chatty. So. Howie, that's done in a separate thread, by the way, so it doesn't impact the main thread or the UI or anything like that. So, anyway, so so it's asking, and you'll see here if I go to WSJT-X, this is kind of an interesting thing. If I go to WSJT-X and I change this is, by the way, normally our DX cluster window. I just use it as a debug window. I dump messages to it, so this isn't there. This is not there in the debug version. Excuse me, in the regular version. You'll see here if I turn on, watch what happens when I turn on tune. Oh, sorry, I gotta cancel this. You see all those messages going out? It's now asking, hey, tell me the status of things and what's going on. And so now I turn it off and it goes back because it wants to know, hey, I'm transmitting. Are you still transmitting? I'm transmitting. Are you still transmitting? And so it's an incredibly chatty protocol. But anyway, that's just sort of behind the scenes on how the sausage is made. But I'll get rid of that. So I just use that. So
I like that term, Tom.
yeah. Anyway, so it's let me work. So let me work one more. Okay, so
why don't you call CQ and I'll answer you?
Sure, that'll work. I haven't called CQ with this before with this one. Hold on, let me try that. Let's see, call CQ and then do an enable.
I think you'll hear me, right?
I think so.
So that should show up on band activity, right?
Yes, it should. Yep, you should see me. Yeah. Yeah, if you look at PSQ. Oh, I'm sorry. Which band activity? Where? Sorry. That one. No, that's gonna. I'll see Rich over there. I won't see my CQ. I'll see when Rich responds to me. If Rich responds to me, I'll see him.
Well, I just saw you. I clicked on you, and I should be responding.
All right. Yeah. Our TX slots are off, so you'll get the next one. Band activity is the general, essentially the whole waterfall. RX frequency is where your receiver is in the waterfall. So that's what it looks at there. That's the difference. Band activity is everything.
Okay.
Let's see if he comes back.
Wow. How much power are you running, man? 10 kilowatts?
No, 100 watts.
You're like 3 inches across the screen over here.
Oh, well, that's not good. No, I'm not. My ALC isn't too high.
No, I'm only kidding.
And yet you didn't see. That's fascinating to me about it. Yet I don't see you. I don't see you back. I don't see you for some reason.
I'm calling you.
You're going right over my head with that beam. That's fascinating. No, I don't see it.
Well, let me turn it around and we'll go around the world.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, because then it would see. Let me see what happens here with somebody else.
You really don't see me, huh?
I didn't see you at all.
Wow.
I don't have the. I don't have my P3 running, so I can't see where you're on the waterfall. I know on the 7300, it was obvious where you were. Rich's is still like a mile, not even a mile away from me. So across the water.
We can run a string between our two stations.
Yeah, he's right across the water too. So it's. Let me see. I didn't get a reply here from that gentleman.
Wow. That's disappointing.
Yeah, so it's weird sometimes. Anyway, what else we got here? Yeah, so right now I can see in this other window it's saying it's transmitting, and I wanted to show the split. And it's let's see when this guy comes back to me. No, he didn't. Interesting. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Propagation's a fickle thing. Let's see. Is anybody hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's on PSK Reporter. So that's everybody who's heard me in the U.S. So yeah, people are definitely hearing me. Yeah, just he doesn't for some reason. That's okay. That happens. Let's do. Well, I actually wanted to show one other thing here. Let me go into settings. So, there he is, right there. Okay.
Now you're seeing me.
Oh no! Now the other guy just came back to me. I just called him a couple of times. He just came back to me.
Now I'm noticing this transmit. It has nothing to do with your logging program. It has to do with the WSJT. I'm noticing you check the box, transmit even, odd. I think that has some sort of effect on who's hearing who and who's talking to who.
Yeah, it actually gets set when you call somebody back, because I didn't have it set a moment ago before I called this guy. Yeah, but yes, you're correct. That's right. That's why sometimes you should sometimes you just should wait a cycle if you're not getting replies and just listen, and then it'll sync up again. So I found that happens too. So here you see the modes, same thing with the, so again, we're going to go ahead and work them, and W8AHC goes into the log. And now the one thing that I haven't done, and I realize I should do this, in a contest, if I typed in here, if I typed in AA2MF, well, actually, I take this back, and it doesn't show up that way because this is general QSO. There are no multiplier needs in general QSO. Up here, I don't, somebody called me back. That gets confusing. So up here is usually where we'll show things like, hey, you need the station. But in general QSO, there are no mults. So again, this is just sort of the general. And I'm amazed that people do it, but I know I've actually heard from people back that say, oh yeah, I use TR as my general logger. It's like, okay. But I mean, it's just, to me, doesn't have quite the information. I can't do call book lookups, and I can't do logbook of the world stuff. But to each his own, I guess. I just don't understand why somebody would do that. But I guess that works. And N1MM, they have the same thing where somebody, oh no, that's just my logger. It's like, oh, okay, that doesn't. It's you're kind of missing stuff, missing out on some stuff there, but I guess it works. Anyway, so it doesn't show up. But I do want to make sure that when I do a contest, that we show up, you see where the station is. And I've also been debating, and Howie, this is probably more for you. I've also been debating that when I call somebody back, is there any value in putting them in the call window? I don't know that there is, unless I need to do that to show the multiplier. But again, it's kind of, to me, and I'll say this and it's not for questions, but to me, the multiplier coloring in the program is really telling me if I need the station or not. So I could practically just run this way and just leave WSJT-X up there and not even look at TR and just use it, because it'll color the stations for me. And you're not really using a cluster. It's not, you don't really, if you're doing if you're doing an FT8 contest, you don't really look at the band cluster or the band map. I mean, whatever's there is there. So it's not. So it's kind of a. I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense. So I know people have also said with N1MM, you can just hide the log. You don't even need to show that, because the whole idea, and they actually are very adamant. The WSJT-X people are very adamant that they don't want you driving from another program. They want you to use this interface. You can log stuff and you can color it, but they really want you to use this interface.
Might be useful once you get some feedback from contesters using it.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, if anybody say, I'm open to it. I'm just right now I'm trying to figure out if it would be more confusing to, oh, wait a minute, it popped up over here. And so that's one thing. I don't want to confuse people with it. So anyway, we'll bring this back up. So here, let me clear this out. And now I will send out the link to the latest beta, which has all this. And the latest beta does not have the ICOM split mode support. So if you have an ICOM radio, don't use split mode. Actually, I wanted to show you this though. Hold on, I'm sorry. So again, this is split mode. And again, that's just to space it out. It'll shift it down like a kilohertz or 1 kc, and you'll see now it'll go into make sure I didn't break this. It still works. Oh, see that? I think there is an issue when you change from split to non-split while the program is running. I haven't quite figured out what that is yet. So for the moment, if you're going to change modes, like it's not something you change very often. I shut the program down and I start it up again. I need to figure out what I'm missing. But for some reason, I'm missing something. But my radio right now is in, matter of fact, I can show this. My radio right now is in there it is right there. Let me are you sharing the screen? Oh yeah. By the way, you see W88AHC up there is in red. That means we worked them before, so I wouldn't look them. And again, this isn't a contest, but if it was a multiplier I needed, he would be in yellow. Again, unless I change that color. So that's how I would know if it was a contest. Now, one thing which is interesting. In contests such as VHF, such as CQ VHF, and I think TR does the same, or N1MM does the same, has the same limitation where they look at multipliers. You know, if it's a section contest, that like sweepstakes. Yeah, and if the problem is I don't really know what section that person is in until I work them, or I've worked them before. So I don't really know that a stateside contact is a multiplier. Rich, that makes sense? You know, you don't really know that. So I had the idea, and I actually, believe it or not, I actually did this. I haven't coded this yet, but I did this. I basically created, because in VHF contests and actually in any WSJT-X interaction, you always have the grid. So if somebody, because even if you're in field day mode and you do a CQ field, it'll say CQ field day, it always includes the grid. Well, I actually wrote a little table. I used Excel, and I just have to code this. This isn't actually easy to code, but I'm still thinking about how to code this. But I went in and took all the grids in the United States, all 488 of them, and I said, which state is this grid in? And if it's only in one state, no problem. That's easy. But if it's in multiple states, that's where we get into a little dicey area on what do we do. Because there's one grid in the United States, for example, that covers 5 states. That's in the north. It's in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and it covers. It gets Vermont, it gets Rhode Island, it gets Massachusetts and Connecticut. No, not Connecticut. That would be impossible. I think it's New York. But no, that wouldn't be possible. But it's 5 states. I know. I double checked, and because it's like, well, wait, as I was doing it, I knew I had 4, and I had a couple 4s. I said, oh no, I'm not going to get a 5, and I knew the New England would probably give me the 5th. But anyway, so if I get a contact, this guy right here, wherever EM86 is, which I think is in Kentucky. If I get EM86 and I see Kentucky, well, if I know I haven't worked Kentucky, well, now I can, and if it's only Kentucky, I can confidently say that's a multiplier. Whereas otherwise I can't, because I don't know who he is. So, but he's telling me his location. Like CM89 is, oh no, I was going to say CM89 is California, but where he is. And so in that situation where it's really a stateside contest, I know where he is, so I actually can derive multiplier information from that, which is different because I don't really have that in other programs where this concept of where is he. DX calls, it's easy. I know if I see IK8, I know I need Italy. That's easy in DX contests. But in stateside contests, you don't have that until you work them or you've worked them before. So if I know, like if I see W8AHC and I know, hey, he was in Ohio, let's just guess. Then if I see it later and on another band, I know, oh, I need Ohio on another band, and I know W8AHC is, I would show I need him anyway, right? So he could be, I could figure out he's a multiplier because presumably his grid wouldn't change in the contest.
I think you would need at least 2 matrices though, because for ARRL sections, it's even more granular.
Yes. While I was typing this list, I realized, oh wait, I need to go a little deeper and go. Yeah, unfortunately, I thought about that already. I need to go a little deeper and say, okay, not what state are they in, but what sections are they in? That I haven't done yet. I haven't had enough time to. The other one, I just had a few minutes. I had played around with it. It was sort of an OCD exercise to sort of complete the whole thing, but. The other one.
Is that a text file, Tom?
I do. I have an Excel. I have a spreadsheet that has every grid and what state it's in.
Oh,
And I
God.
was actually gonna code up make the code to say, okay, well, if it's this grid, I know it's this state, and if it's a state contest, like Roundup, I think it's no, I take that back. Roundup is sections. No, Roundup is states, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Roundup is state. So, and Roundup has that's sort of the major, other than Field Day, the major FT8 or contest that supports FT8. CQVHF is easy. That's an obvious one. But anyway, so yeah, so the problem comes into what do you do when you have people who are on the border? I don't want to say, well, if there's a question between Ohio and West Virginia, well, that's a bad example. If there's a question between Ohio and Indiana, if it's an 8 call, it's going to be Ohio. If it's in other words, if there's a grid on the border, I'm not going to infer that, because with call signs nowadays, you just don't know.
Right. Well, one possibility, there's a lot of possibilities, but one possibility would be the number of question marks you insert represents the number of possibilities.
Yeah, it's true too. On the other hand, you could just say, well, you know what? I'm going to tell you he's a mult, and we could have an option there to say, do you want me to do aggressive, mult calculation or conservative mult calculation? And worst case, if I get one that's on the border of Ohio and Indiana, and you need Ohio and Indiana, I'm going to tell you, if I see that one grid, I'm going to tell you it's either one. And that's one. You could look at it that way, because what do I care if it's not a dupe? It's still a contact, but at least I can draw my attention to, hey, there's a good chance. I didn't get into the fact that, well, there's some, and I'll end this topic here, but I didn't get into the fact that there's some part. Well, okay, 90% of this grid is in this state, and 10% of this grid is in this state. I did not go that far. That would be a little nuts. To say, well, there's a 90% probability that the person is in Tennessee versus Kentucky. So I didn't go there. So, although now that I think of it, of course, that would be interesting to do. So anyway, that was one interesting thing, because one of the things in FT8 is we do know the grid. So what I wanted to show everybody was, you see here, I'm in split mode. And again, some people use this, some people don't, but when you read about different contesting and, Roundup and reports that, split mode, just right now, I have my VFO-A is in 14074 and VFO-B is in 14073. So it just put the radio in the split mode. So when I transmit, it would be on 14073 instead of 074. And you'll see over here, if I bring over some of the displays, you'll see that I have the radio 1 is in, you'll see the VFOs, and you'll see radio 1's in split mode. All right. And that's actually we should make this yellow over here too, to indicate it's in split mode. I know you put that little display up there, but to indicate it's in split mode. Anyway, so that's just one thing that that's an option, and so if you use split mode, it does support that. And again, it's been tested with the newer ICOM radios, and the older ICOM radios will not do split mode. It's just that's not going to work very well. But there's just no good way to handle that. But anyway, newer, more recent ICOMs. And I'm talking about even 7100 has them, and 7610 has it, and 7850 has it, and 7800 has it. So ICOM has updated that command set for a lot of radios, but not all of them. So 9100, for example, still doesn't have it, and the 756 series, forget about that. That barely has anything. But okay, so I wanted to show one thing here. So for people who haven't used this before, I'll send the link out to the beta. And when you install this program, it's typically going to come up, and the most important thing to look at is in this settings menu. You're going to have this thing called Radio 1, and you go in there and you just select whatever radio you have. So, Richie, or I should say Alan, in your case, you would go find the 7610 and select that one. Richie, you go find, what do you have, an FT1000?
Yeah. The MP. I don't know if
MP, yeah, you go find your MP, and that's right there. That should work. And then you got the K3, and I'll put the K4 in there soon. But anyway, I go all the way up to the 9700. I don't have the 705 in here yet because I don't have an English book yet. So, but what radio, Rich? What was the radio you said you picked up? The 990.
Yeah, I'm working with the 99 the FT 991.
Yeah, I have it in there. Okay, yeah, we have it there. So. I don't know if that's been tested, but but I assume that generally if it's in there and it's a new rig, that just means we checked and the command set was the same. So and that's usually a good indicator that you're going to be okay. But because they don't typically change that stuff.
I noticed when you brought up the WSJT setup screen that was a couple of little differences on the push to talk and.
What do you mean?
Well.
This one?
Bring up setup. Go down to setup.
Settings, yeah.
Settings, and go into radio.
Yeah.
Okay, now bring up mine because actually I have the thing running right now, as you know.
Okay.
And radio, I'm noticing that to interface with this radio, the push to talk method would be RTS.
Oh yeah, that's an option. If you have the hardware support for it, yeah, that's an option. You can do that, and that's fine.
And also,
I just did it where you do with basically the cat command. WSJT-X tells TR, go ahead and turn the transmitter on, and that's what's doing it.
And also the mode is listed, at least on this radio. They're looking for the mode control of USB also.
That is entirely possible. That all depends on what the internal mode on the it all depends on what the internal mode is.
It uses USB for FT8 function.
Yeah, this is upper sideband, and there's just to clarify in the mode upper sideband in this case. That's not, of course, universal serial bus, but that's upper sideband. Yeah, and that just depends on the radio. Different radios are going to be different.
Right. Well, that's the differences that I'm seeing.
Right, and that's fine, and that should not be a problem. But yeah, I'm interested to make sure that works okay.
Yeah, sure. We'll close enough, you know.
I don't have a radio that does it in USB mode per se. Oh yeah, one other thing that had to change too in the ICOM. For example, the ICOM does something interesting where the 7300, and Alan, you may have the same situation. The 7300 puts the radio into USB mode, but it tells it it's in USB digital, so upper sideband digital. So whereas the K3 puts it in data mode, and then the K3 has different data modes. So it has like an FSK data mode, it has an AFSK data mode, it has a PSK, if you're using the internal K3 PSK decoder or the RIDI decoder. And it also has a data mode, which is typically what you use programs like WSJT-X with. And so I actually had to extend that a little bit to find out what the actual mode was, don't just tell me if you're in data, tell me if you're in FSK, or tell me if you're in data or AFSK or what. So, but yeah, because the mode actually, I think the mode stuff was probably as big a challenge as doing all the different, handling the mode support was probably the thing that gave me the most headaches in all this. The rest of it was just a matter of doing it, but it wasn't technically difficult. It was just a matter of coding it. But the modes had me jumping around trying to figure out what all these different radios were doing. So, and that's actually kind of the nice thing about using the Commander interface is Commander has a set number of modes it expects back, and as long as I support those, then WSJT-X is happy. But yeah, so anyway, if you have this, if you have support, I don't ever recommend you use Vox, but if you have support, like you have some sort of hardware interface, you can do DTR or some other, you can do it over the USB line, that works too. I just do it as CAT, and we do support, I should add, in TR, let me bring up TR again here. Where was I? Oh, here it is right there. We do have, okay, so now the other point, the thing I need to, this is the elephant in the room with TR. TR4W, remember TR4W came from TR-Log, which was a DOS program. The DOS program had this interface, this Control J, and you'd go in and set these options. When the port was done to Windows, I think it's Vasily. Yeah, I think he sort of kept the same interface, He just made it where you have this long grid, and they're alphabetical, and you have all these options. And if you want, it's not a tab interface. It's not a nice little tab interface and whatnot. So that's a bit of it's not really a Windows thing. It's a bit of a different, it's sort of a hybrid approach. So if you generally, you don't need to mess around with too much in here, but if you, you will, if you use the program, you will end up in here. For example, the PTT, I'm just going to keep hitting P here. Let me scroll down. PTT via commands. There is a command, and Howie, this is probably for you, but just a question, but there's a command which says PTT via commands. And that says that you can tell the radio, you can accept a cat command, which basically tells the radio to go into transmit mode. Well, that's actually how WSJT-X is doing it in what it's talking to. So by default, that is false. So if it's false, I put a message up, and this is one of the messages I'm going to translate it. I put a message up that says, PTT via commands is necessary to work with WSJT-X, setting it. I actually force it to set it, and then I'm not going to change it in any configuration file, but then somebody could go in and change that themselves. So the bottom line is there's a few options in here, and I will send a little document that says, hey, set this and this and this. So PTT via commands is one, and it's just because its default you'll see here is false. So I'm not sure if it really matters to people if we have that true or not. I'm wondering if we actually could just make that default true.
Possibly.
I don't think we really ever heard a case to make it true before. Now we kind of do, but we'll see. The other thing, and you have like, if you do the UDP, you may or may not know N1MM sends out a whole bunch of UDP broadcasts, like for the score and for your contacts and for rotors. I do all the same things in here. I added that a couple years ago. I needed it for my little field day display graphs. That's actually what does that. Let's see here. One other thing, which is, again, you don't need to mess around with this, but the WSJT-X broadcast port is by default 2237. You do not need to change that. It's just letting you know if somebody did have a case to change it, then it is a parameter. So we could potentially change that. I think that's really it for when you first come up. That's pretty much all. And if you haven't installed the program before, when you first come up and run it, it's going to pop up and say, "Hey, I notice I'm paraphrasing. I notice your grid score is not set. My grid isn't set. Do you want to set that? Just type in EL88 or EL87, whatever you are, for the people down here, and then hit enter, and it'll be happy, and it will ask you that question again. It wants to know what your grid is, but you don't see that here because I've already been running." And now one other thing, and this is for, well, again, I have not yet started with 2 radio mode, because TR handles 2 radios probably better than anything else on the planet. It handles especially 2 radio CW. It does SO2R incredibly well. Howie's a testament to that. He does that all the time. But it does. I have not yet started anything on SO2R with WSJT-X. Rich, I say that for you thinking. I'm thinking of you when I say that. So, because I know I have not started that.
I'm not that good.
I have not started that yet. Hey, Rich, just a quick question. Do you run one copy of N1MM, or do you run multiples and network them together when you run in multiple rigs?
Yes, one computer, one issue of N1MM.
For each band.
No, for each radio.
Right, for each radio, and then you network them together.
Network them together. I can't run. Okay. You can't run 2 instances of that program on the same computer at the same time. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try to do it where where TR can handle 2 radios and do. Well, maybe I'll try this. We'll do 2 radios and handle 2 different instances of. Okay. Yeah, maybe not. That might be damn near impossible to make work. But anyway, that's just
that's just more for the fun of it. And actually, I do also need to test the networking just to make sure I haven't broken anything there. But that's one last thing I need to. I don't believe I would have, but I did change a couple of things, but we need to make sure I had the network because we support networking computers together, of course. But anyway, so and the last thing, I don't think anybody, no one on here is an existing, except Howie, of course, is an existing TR user, so I don't believe so. But if you use this new beta version, don't try to open up an old log. I haven't done the log format had to change a little bit, so I haven't finished the conversion program yet. But that's just for people who are using TR. So I would say keep it separate, install it, and like just pull the executable and then keep it separate to run if you want to keep the old version and the beta or the current version and the beta version. But anyway, for the people who haven't used it before, that's not an issue.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, now we're talking about an FT8 contest using WSJT as the decoder, and we're using TR4W as the log. So, starting up, you bring up TR4W, you bring up the contest, everything is set. Then you switch over, or you bring up WSJT for the FT8 functioning. You're in contest mode, I believe, in WSJT because is that special. That's in the settings towards the end over there.
Yeah.
Right? Advanced. Now you're getting into a special operation for whatever that is. Where is the log being held? Because they also have I believe they have a function in WSJT where you're creating a contest log, but I believe that's only works when you're in contest mode in WSJT. So
correct. It's just a file that it's in the program directory. Yep.
So depending on what your contest is, that would be set with TR4W, and you'll create a new log for this contest, and every contact will be put into that log. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's both though. Remember, WSJT-X is always going to put it into its log.
Yeah, but that's
it will also send it over to TR and put it in there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then the log is going to be created per the contest in TR4W, and at the end of the contest, that's where all your information is going to be.
Right.
Separate
That's
to
correct.
itself.
That's correct. I'm gonna do a little thing here. Hold on, I'm gonna show you. So when I start this, and this is good. So when I start this, so here I'll do AA2MF, and I want to make it. Let's say I want to make it field day, or ARL field day.
Good example. Okay.
So 1D, or actually 3D WCF, right?
Right.
So I get a brand new log, and so I'm set up for field day. And then if I bring up, then same thing, all I'm doing is running WSJT-X like I normally do, and it will start talking to, you see the rig, you see this little rig thing right here is green. That means it's talking to the radio. That means it's getting responses back from the radio through TR. That's what that little green thing means. If it's orange, it means it's not talking to it for some reason. And then if I work somebody, it would put the...
You would have to go into, if you're going to do it, would actually go into the setups.
Oh, yeah. That would be the last thing you do is you go ahead and, I'm not going to do that here, but because I wouldn't, it would try to work somebody in field day mode. So, but yeah, you'd go in here and advance and say special, and then you go in and say field day, and you do 3D WCF. Right.
Okay.
And one thing, and then here you see the contest log that's set up. One thing to keep in mind with TR4W, which is a little different, and that is that I'm going to go ahead and say, now I'm going to bring down this one. I don't want to mess that up. So forget about the so here I'm in sideband. Okay, so I work NY4I. Oh, I guess I changed my colors. I actually was testing around with that. I changed my colors to whatever that is, mauve. So here's NY4I, and I did one DWCF, right? Easy enough. W4UB, and he's one. Let's see, I got confused. I put 1O thinking this was winter field day. WCF, field day class must be A, B, C, D, E, or F. Easy enough. So good. I'll change that to E or D and WCF. Easy. Oh, I'm going to make that let's see, WCFL, improper domestic QTH. So it needs to be WCF. No problem. And then I'm going to work N4KIN. And then I'm copying him, and I picked up that he's West Central Florida first. I got that first. Now I'm going to make it, he's 1D. No problem. We figured that out right. And, the order doesn't matter. The program, it's a computer, for God's sake. It can figure out what you meant. Why am I going to force people to do things like that? That makes no sense at all. The other one which I love is this is probably my favorite feature in all of this program is here I work NY4A, which is the Howie's club call, and then it was so he's got 1D North Carolina, and you know what? It was really NY4Q. Watch this. So I thought I heard A, but it turned out he was NY4Q. So I don't need to tab back up and fix it. I can just type it there, and it didn't work. Hold on, sorry, my mistake.
Those gremlins are striking again.
Hold on. Fortunately, I know why that is. I thought I had this set. Yeah. So again, that's why I said normally you don't need to go in there, but this is an option called call sign update enable. And it's got, again, we have, even though it's kind of a, it's not really a Windows-ish interface in the sense, it does have some, the descriptions here are good. And we have, and not that it matters to you guys, but we have these descriptions in, I think 8 or 9 languages. So that's one of the reasons it's used. I mean, we have Mongolian translations, for God's sake. So okay, so I'm sorry. So let me do this again. Sorry. So here's NU4B. And 1D Eastern Pennsylvania. And then, he was NU3B. There's these. Okay, see the NU3B showed up? So I didn't actually have to pop up to the previous one and fix it. And if it was on CW, it would actually send out, NU3, okay. So somebody knows I've got his right call. Anyway, that's just, and you see the operator here is, it's got the frequency and the operator and all that stuff. And now one other thing which you can't see, and I'll say this just for anybody who's interested in CW, which is another cool feature, and that is that I'm going to switch modes here. I'm just using Alt M on the program, and I have my radio in. There it is, in test mode. Okay, so the K3 is actually not going to transmit. But here, I'm going to go ahead and tell it. Oh, my mistake. That's funny. So again, it is just, we have, even the basic documentation covers this stuff. It's a little older documentation, but there's a getting started guide and whatnot on the TR4W.net website. And this is called Radio 1. And this is more for people who are interested in CW and don't want to have a separate interface. This is one of my other favorite features. And I say this because it was one of the most helpful to me because I didn't want to have a separate. My thought was, hey, the rig will send CW. Why don't I just have the program send CW? So here's one. So here we go, right? I'm going to send CQ. Let's see if you hear this.
Hey, that's me.
But the point of that was that the radio didn't actually. I'm not hand coding codes in there. The radio just knows, hey, you're sending. You want to send CW with the radio? I'll just convert it to the K and K3. It's a KY command for keyer. and you actually just send, and you send a literal text. So I send CQ, so literally send that, and I just let the radio handle it. So I
As
don't have to
long
worry
as the
about
cat will handle.
it. That's right, and we have a set, and it's fortunately it's most newer radios except Yaesu. Even on the brand new Yaesus, they have not implemented that feature. I don't know why, but they have not implemented that feature. So they do. But yeah, any late model ICOM, and I say late model, lasts probably 8 years, and certainly the K3 and the K2 and K4 will do it as well. But anyway, and the Kenwoods, the newer Kenwoods, the 590 and whatnot. But anyway, I just kind of a one, and it's sort of how this stuff works. Is it? Hey, wait a minute. Why do I have to have a key? Why do I have to have a keyer when I have this perfectly good capability inside the radio to do it? So that was, and the other one, which is my other, which the other one I like really well is, I always had forever. If you're a CW operator, you're familiar with this problem. I always had the problem forever that the paddle speed, the keyer, you have your computer set to one speed, and then you have if you're using the keyer and the radio at the paddle, it's set to a different speed, and you go back to do a fill, and it comes back at a different speed, and it messes somebody up. So if you change the frequency, if you change the, like right now when I'm changing, I'm pressing up, page up and page down to change the speed, and you'll see over here my CW speed is changing. And on the front of the radio, it actually shows that word per minute. So it's setting the keyer to the exact same words per minute. So again, it just keeps it in sync because so you don't come back at a different speed than you. It's like it's just a simple thing you can do, and I'm not sure why everybody doesn't do that, honestly. But it makes it really easy to do that. And I think so. Okay, so I think that is pretty much it here. Let's see. Let me do one thing. Since I was in CW, I want to show you one thing. When I'm in WS, when I bring up WSJT-X. You see how the radio changed over to digital? You see the display here, the radio changed over to digital right here. That's because when WSJT-X comes up, when WSJT-X comes up, it sends out a command to say, hey, go ahead and set the radio to digital. And I'm just responding to that command. So that's kind of how that, I'm in 14025 here. So here, let me change frequencies back to 14074, and let me get out of field day mode. So that would really drive people crazy. All right, so I'm back in regular mode, and then yeah. Now I don't try to do anything like if you say, well, wait a minute, you have WSJT-X in standard mode, not in field day mode anymore, and your the program's not in field day. So this is a question for people. WSJT-X does tell you what advanced mode it's in. So it will say, hey, I'm in field day. It is possible for me to say, hey, wait a minute, WSJT-X says it's in field day mode, but you're not in field day. You're not set up for field day. So it is possible I could put a little message down here maybe to say, hey, WSJT-X says it's in field day, but you're not set up in field day. Do you want to fix that? That may be just a helpful thing to tell somebody so they'll know, oh, I'm in field day and I'll fix that. Same thing with roundup. And so WSJT-X will tell you what, so I don't know if that's an easy thing to do. I just hadn't, I thought about it, just haven't gotten around to doing it. So it's just, a helpful thing when the operator say, hey, you're in a different mode. You may not realize that the program's in a different mode. So anybody have any thoughts on that? If it's easy to do, just to give it sort of indication of that, hey, your modes, you might have something misconfigured.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that's something I would mess up for sure. So
Okay.
it would help me.
All right. Yeah, I would just put a little quick display message down here to say WSJT-X says it's in field day mode, and you're not in ARL field day. And just to let somebody know that, hey, you have that case. So that's easy enough to do. Actually, I say that the reason I say that is because I've thought about that 10 times. I just keep forgetting about it. So message if WSJT-X advanced contest doesn't not equal to our contest. Yeah, it's easy enough to know because it's only a finite set. You know, it's like CH, CQ, VHF, and Roundup and Field Day. There's only a finite number of contests that WSJT-X supports. So, and it's an easy one-to-one mapping between the two. And again, last thing, I'm not trying to convert anybody from using N1MM. N1MM does a lot of things. It does RIDI particularly well. You know, we do have a RIDI interface. It's much simpler, much more simplistic, I'll say. And it will talk to MMTTY, but it's much simpler than, that's one of the things I really haven't worked with that much. I need to start working with a little more just to test it out and see if there's some stuff missing. But there's so much that the N1MM interface does in RIDI. Just like WriteLog. WriteLog was always its niche. And you know, N1MM does a lot of good things. I'm not trying to compete with N1MM, but there were certain things that the configuration of WSJT-X was maddeningly complex, and I didn't think it needed to be. So I sort of reduced it down to what do people typically do. People are used to running WSJT-X already. They're used to clicking on the icon. Why are you changing that? Just let them work. They're used to the same configurations that they're used to. You know, I can go maintain my configurations as well as anybody. You know, up here in WSJT-X, I have NY04I Field Day, TR Field Day, VHF, my microham. I have all these interfaces. I don't need yet the program to create yet another one like that -EF1 thing they do, or EH1, whatever they do. I don't need it to create a new one, so I can do all that myself. So that's kind of my idea to keep it simpler. And oh, one last thing. If you're used to running JT Alert, I'm just glad I remembered this. Do not run JT Alert at the same time. JT Alert does not share what's called the UDP port. It does not share that port well. It will conflict. So if you try to run, if you bring up TR's interface and try to then bring up JT Alert, JT Alert will not work. It will not be able to talk to WSJT-X. Same thing with the other way around. If you bring up JT Alert, I keep saying that, TR4W will not be able to talk to WSJT-X. So don't run those at the same time. In a contest mode, JT Alert, especially since we do the color highlighting and we tell you if it's a dupe or a mult, that highlighting does everything you need. You don't use both of them. And that's otherwise it will not work. In the next version of JT Alert, the next big version 3, he's supposed to fix that so it can share that UDP port properly, but he hasn't finished coding that yet. So and I think that's pretty much it. So this is still a beta, so we'll get the link out to everybody and I'll email it to everybody, and you just go download it from our website. Oh, and last thing, if you go download sometimes I'm going to go to, let's go to TR4W.net. So TR4W.net is our website where we have this stuff. This is the latest official release. This does not have any of this code in it. I'm going to include a beta. Again, I'll send you a link which is to the beta, and then you can run. Yeah, it's actually funny. It's less than 410 kilobytes. It's we have our code is pretty lightweight. I have actually added more to it than I think anybody else has recently, as far as the size of the executables go, because I use different components. But by comparison, and this doesn't really matter, but by comparison, the visual, it's funny because nowadays programs get so big with all the different pieces they include. So if you look at the logger, the logger is up to 8 gigabytes, or 8 megabytes, sorry. 8 megabytes of code. So it's amazing how big programs get nowadays. There's all these Visual Basic things in there, and Delphi's always written or generated really efficient code. So but it's amazing how big they get. I mean, that doesn't change the functionality of it at all. It's just, obviously we have plenty of room nowadays, but it does affect your memory footprint. You could certainly run TR4W on. I doubt you have any computer that couldn't run TR4W. It's it would run on the oldest thing you could possibly find that could run Windows, would still run just fine because it's just not a very big program. And that's about it, I think. I'm going to go to the website. Sorry. So we do have, we're trying to get some help on people to update these, but the getting you going part, the user manual actually does have enough information to get you going. It's been, like I said, it's been quite a few years since it's been updated, but the basics are the same. And at, you can start there.
We should point out there at the top where it says TR4W.wiki has a lot of good information. Most of it you've built.
It does, yeah. And this is actually our wiki where we have information on all different things. As a matter of fact, if you look down here, you'll see WSJT to TR4W integration. You'll see the WSJT UDP interface information. So I kind of log what we do as I write it. It just gives me a place to keep stuff, and so people know what we're doing, and that's more just for useful information. So we do tend to do that. But I also have in here somewhere, which is interesting. If you're ever interested in ICOM CI5 information, I have typically have, although ICOM keeps changing these websites, I have links to all the different PDF or CI5 manuals for all these radios. So I can go to, and I have the addresses here for all of them. So I can go, and I usually have documented, what the radio does, what it doesn't do, and things like that. So it's just a place I can keep it centralized for my own purposes. Anyway, so that's just some of the other. Oh yeah, here's our list of radios too that support speed sync, the CW by CAT. I actually have a table here that all these radios that support the different CW, that CW by just by commands thing I was talking about. As unfortunately the ASU does not support most of that. Anyway, that's about it here. So yeah, there's a lot of good information here. And for the really curious, let me see, the last thing here, what this be our website, is if you click on this thing where it says open source. And I say this more because of issues. If you look, this is actually our repository where we keep all our code. If you look at issues, you can actually see any open issues. These are all the open ones, and you'll see like things like I've add the K4 as a radio, and different things. Different people report different bugs. We keep them in here, and add ICOM 705 support. Just as I think of things to add, and people report bugs, we include them, so we have a place to keep track of those, and you know what's out there and what's just in case you want to. And this is where we have new contests we support and things like that. So it's just different things we have. It's helpful, especially to see. You can search and through an issue like here. I can search for ICOM. Okay, that's all things related to ICOM that are still open. Actually, the 7610 is in there, but that just needs to be tested. But it is in there. So I did check that, and it does look like it works. So I just need to get some validation from someone. Anyway, that's about it. Oh, and last piece. I'm sorry, I keep saying this. Last piece, then I'm done. Inside the program directory, the beta version you're going to get is going to write a log file. And this is just the beta version. I don't have this turned on. Can't even turn this on dynamically because it makes the code much slower to have to constantly say, hey, debug, yes, debug, not debug, yes. So we just compile that out of it. But it is going to produce a file, which is a let's see here. Let me go to this target. So these are all the program these are all the directories. It's not a database per se. These are more flat files. But this is an example of the log file that it will produce. And this is, so the reason I point this out to you is if you're doing things and you have a problem, especially with rig control, it would be helpful to send that to go into your directory and send that. It'll be in the program directory. It'll be helpful to go send that, go get that log file and send it to me. If you have trouble finding it, let me know. But that way I can see what the program was doing. And because you see, it's useful to know, hey, I pressed this key, or I sent this to the radio, or all these different things that hey, WSJT-X said turn the transmitter on, and so it's interesting to know. It's sometimes helpful to know if we have problems. So again, if you're testing the beta, it'd be helpful to see that. And that's about it. Yeah, Howie, and just for you, like I say, I don't. That's not dynamic. Users can't turn that on and off because you'd have to. There'd be a lot of decisions we'd be making in the code repeatedly. So I decided we'll just, we have a beta, a debug version and a non-debug version. So easiest way. It's the most efficient way to do it, because I'd rather have this. I'd rather have the speed rather than have to do.
So Tom, when is the next contest where this enhancement can really
it's actually the one you just added. So it'll be the one in August. So I think with our August release, it'll be they call it Balavia, I think it is. The Singapore contest. And it's a Singapore FT8 contest. There is a I take that back. There is also an FT4 contest, the RGSB. I'm sorry, RSGB has an FT4 contest, but that's only 80 meters. And that you could use it for this as well. And I think that's in early August as well. If not next, that might be next weekend. The RSGB contest, the FT4 contest. I looked at it, I didn't pay attention because I don't have an 80 meter antenna. So, yeah, so that's one other place. I think that's the next one. I'm just gonna check one thing here quick just to make sure. And let's see, I think it's here it is right here. It's actually, when is that? That is 27th. Yeah, 27th is the RSGB. If you have 80 meter capability, that's 80 meters, and this will work just fine with that. Well, I take that back. It will. Okay, so here's the question. It probably won't work just fine, but just because WSJT-X doesn't know anything about that contest, but if you look at the exchange, it's just standard 4-character grid squares, so you can just use general QSO.
No, the problem is RSGB has a lot of these. If you look at the time and the frequency,
yeah,
it's not exactly germane to.
Yeah, that's true too. So yeah, it's 1900. Oh yeah, 1980 meters. That's not really going to work very well for us,
No.
is it? So that's 3 o'clock in the afternoon on 80 meters. Yeah, never mind. Forget about that one. But the YB contest I think the YB contest is over here. There it is. Batavia FT8 contest. That is August 1st, all weekend, and that's just 4-character grid. So again, I would just do, well, I guess we do have that contest in that version, although that'll be August 1st. We may not have that done in time, but maybe we'll have to do a build that has your code for that included in it as a beta. And anyway, we'll work that out. So that'll be, again, this is, I'm not sure how much from here we're going to be working YBs, but you can work other stations in other countries too, and they still count. So anyway, that is it. So do we have any questions? I've been talking a lot here and going through a lot of this. So anybody have any questions?
Nice job, Tom.
Thank you. I'm really interested in feedback on, hey, this isn't working, or it'd be easier to do this, or I work on feedback. That's how I get, I understand what people, because this is kind of how I thought it should work. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in here to make this all work. And so I just need feedback on, hey, it'd be good if the program said this or did this or whatever. That's exactly the kind of stuff I need. So if you use it,
I'll give the group the feedback that I gave you on the phone yesterday, Tom.
Yeah.
Which it's stupid simple to set up. You install it, you start WSJT-X, it goes, oh look, WSJT-X is there, and it works.
Yep.
you don't have to do the 47 or 49 step web page thing to get WSJT-X to integrate with N1MM and all that hoopla. And I mean, you could cut down the, you know, the program size a bit. It's a little bloated, you know. I mean, what is it? You know, but yeah, I mean, at least from what I've tested, just the basic WSJT-X capturing contacts, exporting just basic ADIF file works great, and it's lightning fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you. That was really was my goal to just, you know, use skills people already have and not make people learn new things just to make it more convenient for the computer programmer, because that's the sign, honestly, of a lazy computer programmer. You should make it easy on the user, not because you're gonna code it once, the user's gonna use it a million times. So you make it easier on the user, not make it easy on the programmer. That's always been my philosophy in computer programming. So it doesn't matter if it's easy for me to do or not. The question is to kind of make it easy for you to use, because you're going to use it a lot more than I am. So all right, well, I'll send everybody out the link. It'll just be a link, and some of you may or may not, sometimes at Microsoft Defender sometimes has an issue. When you download the program, we don't have, since we're an open source program, we don't have a certificate. We haven't bought a certificate from Microsoft to go download it, to go install it. So you will get the thing where you have to tell it run anyway. You know, it'll say, oh, hey, this program is an unrecognized publisher, and just do run anyway. And we scan these programs, so just like JT Alert does, we scan them, so we make sure there's no viruses in them and whatnot. So sometimes, every once in a while, somebody reports an issue with that, but that's really not. Usually, what I just do is make an exception in Defender for TR4W. Again, we sort of take that responsibility to check them. And that's about it. So, all right. Well, if anybody has any questions as you're using it, let me know. It'll be easy. You know, if something you got to show me, we can do something on Zoom. That would be fine. Or you can just describe to me what you're doing. That would work too. But get on there, make a few contacts, and just use the general QSO contest and see if it works for you. And if you have any trouble with setting up, like getting it to talk to your radio, by all means, let me know. I can, especially since I know a lot of people are new users of it, I can help anybody with that. All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you all very much for joining.
Will do. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks. Bye-bye.